Good morning, everyone. Sorry, I was a tad late, 5 minutes late. You know, getting the last final screen set up. I always underestimate time, but I'm here. Let's just push this chair down a little bit lower. As always, if you would like to ask me a question during the stream, put 3 yellow emojis right next to your question. And let me just pop out the chat. I've been very tardy today. So, no excuse. Hi to the regulars. Good to see you all. Rocket, August, David, how are you? Just a guy. How's it going? Everyone's commenting on me and getting coffee and spilling coffee. Let me know also if you can see and hear me properly. Yeah, Rocket says if you ever go to a coffee shop with Human, make sure you sit across from him, not next to him. Well, what if I'm gesturing with my hand like this? I'm going to be spilling the coffee all over you, man. Okay, well, as always today, discussing the recent 2 videos, the recent live stream and the recent video I've done. The last one was just a general discussion of just how much the wrong kind of relationship wears you out. And people don't really take this into consideration. Like, how can I put it? I think a lot of people just go with the flow and find themselves in relationships with people. And they don't really, how can I put it? They think that we'll see how it goes rather than turning up, not prepared for the person, but prepared in terms of what you expect based on, your judgment of actually pulling the trigger and going on the date. You know what I mean? So if you're just going to go out with anyone, admit that to yourself. But if online you start talking about values and things like that, then I think that a lot of guys and girls lie to themselves. They stand on the podium of their values and what's important, and I'm sick of guys or girls doing this. Why can't men or women just be like ... And then on a date, they don't care one bit. So the title of this video is your relationship a two-way street? And it's following on from some of the things I talked about in a group chat with some of the guys on my chat channel. I did a recorded chat. If you want to listen to it, link is below this stream. That's the icon if you go to my chat channel. And basically, is your relationship a two-way street? It needs to be if you want it to work. Otherwise, suffer, your 1 hour of peace in the shed after everyone's gone to sleep. Your house isn't yours. You like spending a lot of time away from home, probably at work. And where you enjoy life is not, with the person you're with or at home. Like your home should be your sanctuary. And if you're with a terrible person, your home no longer is your sanctuary. You look for anywhere else to have some sort of break. Thank you. Let's see. Okay. All right. Dumbledore, thank you for your super chat. I appreciate it. He says, Happy Sunday morning to the man from the future. Must be odd setting up a live stream from the 28th when it is already the 29th where you are. Yeah, I was actually just setting up the cables for my camera. That's why I was a few minutes late. Usually I'm ready at least 10 minutes before, at least, but this time I was fine-tuning things. You know when you focus in on something, like I was just fine-tuning something on a template or a graphic or whatever I wanted to do to prepare for the stream. Anyway, thank you for the super chat. Cleverfish, thank you for the super chat as well, man. He says, both relationships and marriages are a one-way street as both imply exclusivity. Right. However, with women asking for polyamory, any involvement with women is a deal breaker. Please know and tell. Well, yeah, look, you have to be completely honest before you commit to anything. So I'd say even when you're just committing to an exclusive relationship, you know, not even marriage, man, just like you're just tired of the merry-go-round and all the nutcases out there. Like me, I never really liked spinning plates and dating random women. In theory, it's fun very quickly if you're honest with yourself. It's just draining and it takes up all of your time. I've got better things to do than chase female strangers. If you chase with a standard, I mean, whether you want to chase or not, that's very different. You don't spend as much time because a lot of people out there are incompatible or just frankly trash. You know, no, I can't understand how anyone could have a relationship with them. I've met some really nice people who are just not compatible with me. And it's like, thanks, but no thanks. And I've tried to have relationships with some of them. And I realized in retrospect it should have been thanks, but no thanks. But I just thought, well, you're better than a lot of the trash out there. Like I've been trying to find someone I get along with and I get along with you. And then you don't want to acknowledge that they're very different in their values. You know, I'm a homebody, they're not. They want to travel, I don't. They like going out all the time, I don't. They're into this, I'm not. Really, a lot of the places I reside, they're not even willing to meet me halfway. I like this genre of movies. They completely hate it and they won't even consider watching that movie with me. Just things like that. They're completely one-sided, so they need to find someone else that's like them. But they might not necessarily be bad people. You know, they don't have tempers and all the extreme things we talk about. You know, the videos you can make about women, yeah, they're easy to see from orbit. But incompatibilities are something that people really overlook. They think they can game their way through incompatibility by focusing on other things that other men or women would want and holding that partner up as a prize and saying, look, I've got something good. It's like, but you can't stand being around that person. You only feel good showing them off to people around you. But when you're in four walls or you're driving in your car, you're just silent and, you know, your mind's somewhere else and you wish you had someone else next to you. A clever fish continues. I read his comments. Prince Revolver, how are you, man? He says, I have to admit my previous relationship failed on my part because I let my ego, pride, and miscommunication get in the way. This is very important. I'm very respectful of guys that can self-reflect in this way, where you can say, we can easily point to when she acted like a wretch, when she was unfair, where she exhibited traits of all of these women that are easy to point at, that you just can't have relationships with, that are completely selfish. They just kind of squeeze you dry until there's nothing left, then they discard you like a used tissue. They're easy to talk about as a way of making yourself feel good or raising yourself above your sort of emotional station, where underneath it all, you're kind of ashamed and you're regretful of what you lost. But how you lost it, you know, should you have said no a lot sooner? Did you keep your mouth shut because to you she was a prize? Maybe you didn't have a girlfriend for a long time. It's hard for you to get a girlfriend and you're grateful for anyone, but she was the worst kind of person. Doesn't matter if she's good looking. There's a million good looking women out there that have terrible personalities, and a lot of them, they don't need to develop a good character because they've been able to have just everything thrown at them because of their looks. And you think, oh, wow, I'm so lucky. Who would have thought? She's a great looking girl and she's single. And then you find out there's a reason why she's single. Compatibility with hers is a unicorn. There's a joke by Seinfeld once. It's like that the free parking spot right in front of the supermarket. You think, oh my God, how did anyone miss that? And it's a disabled parking spot. But it's the same with these women. There's a reason why. They're a mirage. They're bait, but there's nothing apart from the bait. It's just the hook. Clever Fish, thanks for the super chat. He said, men built the world and the society that women enjoy. Therefore, men submit to God, women submit to men. Today, women won't submit to men are most, at the moment, women destined to perish. Thoughts? Look, that's very archetypical. But let's look at the reality of men. And like, you're not going to get the toothpaste back in the tube. Women are free. They can do what they want. They burnt the bridge with men. Now they have to be independent whether they like it or not, and particularly the consequences of being independent. So now they have to work like men. Now they not only have the work of being a mother if they want to have kids, they also have added to their work exponentially by having to earn money. Now, the submitting... And like, you can use, sometimes people have a problem with the word submission, but I like to say lead. A woman likes a man to lead. No human being adult who knows himself past a certain age likes to be a dog on a leash, right? Let's admit that. For me, I don't want to commit to a woman who's a dog. I mean, I'm not into bestiality, figuratively speaking, in case the algorithm picks it up. But I think if you kind of start believing in the answer being, it's kind of like this perfect myth of like submission and God and all that stuff. If it works for you, great, right? But just be realistic about the chances of you finding that in the real world. And if that's important to you, God, submission, all of this kind of thing, that's kind of fine. But I think we need to play with the reality that's in front of us. And I'm not saying that you need to, take away what's important to you in your hierarchy of things. Like, I have things I value in my life. Kids has never been one of them. And in terms of like, if we want to talk about biology and the species and God and the structure and what I should do, right, I'm not doing that, and I refuse to do it. And am I wrong in the grand scheme of things? Yeah, I'm an oddity. I'm not doing the right thing by the species, but I'm determined to do the right thing by me, what works for me, and what I can consciously give to another person, be honest about. Like, I try not to lie about those things. Like, and as I've gotten older, like I'm very proud that I lie about those things to myself less and less. I lie about those things to women and people around me less and less. And it just makes my life clearer and simple. Having to lie just to get those nice things and then maintaining the lie and hating your life afterwards, it's just not worth it. And we all know it. All of you guys know it, but you think, well, maybe it'll be different for me. We're acting no different to these women who want the exception. No, I don't have to have kids in my 20s. I can wait till my 40s because Madonna had some child through $1 million in vitro fertilizer, whatever it is, So we need to be realistic with the options that we have available. Thinking that you're going to be the exception, that luck is going to happen to you, you are just waiting for the lottery. That's all you're doing. You might say, well, human, you're doing the same thing where you're curating your life the way you want. No, I'm designing it with the reality I have available in front of me, with the things I can grab hold of, with the chess pieces I actually have in front of me. I can move them in odd ways, but I'm designing my life the way I want, and I'm being very honest with the people I meet, who I am. I'm not lying to people, and, some guys will be like, tell her anything she wants to hear because, she's never yours. It's just your turn. And so it gives a lot of guys license to lie and to act like women. And frankly, I don't respect those guys at all. Any of you guys that lie to women the same way that you hate them lying to you, I don't respect you. I frankly don't. If you want to unsubscribe, you can. Because frankly, what have I got to say to you? What conversation can we share? What kind of friendship and dialogue is supposed to happen? You're going to be saying F them and nihilistic this and women always and men always. What's the point? Like, I'm just entertaining you. We can have a bit of a joke, but we're not having a serious discussion. Look, a clever fish. I believe there's like greater things beyond me. I don't necessarily believe in a guy in the sky with a big white beard. In terms of women submitting to men, I believe that women like a man leading, and submission to that leadership, yeah, but that kind of word, I think it's sort of triumphalistic. No one likes hearing that any more than a man will like hearing a woman say, it's your job to take out the garbage. It's your job to do this. It's like, well, don't be a dictator. If I loved you, I'd do anything for you. You don't have to tell me. But people know how to be nice. I think people have just lost the tact of being socially nice. And because if you love, respect, and care for someone, you're not going to talk to them like crap. What are the other comments I've seen? He continues. If women have to do the work, is within men's interest to say things as lower your own toilet seat. Yeah, you can. Open your own door, pull out your own chair, raise your own child, provide for yourself, etc. Yeah, but realistically, as I said, like thinking about the real world, how workable is that? If you're talking down to someone, after a short while, they're not going to feel like you're not treating them well. I had an argument with one of my lifelong friends a few months ago. He talked down to me, and we're not that close anymore. When we catch up, we're respectful, but we used to be really close friends. And when he talked down to me, the next time we talked, we wanted to talk about it, and he was trying to explain his side, but he wouldn't admit that he talked down to me. He said things like, well, I'm sorry that you got upset, and, it's regrettable that that situation turned out the way it was. But objectively, I didn't put him down. I was trying to solve a disagreement we had or a point of view. And he was just talking from a higher point of view, talking down to me. And I said, no, will you admit you talked down to me? You disrespected me. And he just was trying to sort of word salad his way around it. And he was saying, well, you did this and this and this. And I said, well, I'll admit I did. I said this. My point of view, I criticized this. So like, I admit you've done more than me in this regard and whatever. I'll admit that. It's objectively true. Will you admit you talked down to me? Word salad as well. Okay. No one likes being talked down to, especially if we're adults, especially if we're thinking adults. Like, I hope guys that follow and enjoy my work on my channel. But if you're going to say things like lower your own toilet seat, open your own door, blah, 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 you're not going to have a long-term relationship with that. That's either someone who's had massive trauma, she's got such low self-esteem that she's going to be a pet in your life, and you can never count on her for anything. You can never count on her. You really think someone who's going to submit to that degree is going to stand up for you as well? They're a child. And as I said, I never wanted children, so I don't want to go out with a child either. Yeah, and I know my particular woman was hard to find. But again, it's either what works for me or nothing. Because if it's no women in my life is good. If I come across that woman with standards, realistic standards, they're not ridiculous ones, and they're workable ones, it'll be good. But this is kind of one-sided, I think. Lower your own toilet seat, pull your own door, do your own this. Well, she's basically on her own. Why does she need to be with you any more than if you do everything for her, why do you need her in your life as well? You could say the same thing. So let's just be realistic about these things, guys. They sound tough and good, but a lot of them aren't workable. So remember, if you want to ask me a question, super chat me during the live stream, and I will see it. Let's see, during the live stream here, and I will see it. Let's see. Just the guy says, why do you consider relationships that are not long-term as spinning plates? Not necessarily. If you're doing them open and honestly, it don't work for you. If they work for you, they work for you. A lot of guys are following scripts that don't work for them. A lot of people follow self-help gurus. Like, if you're a shy introvert and you're trying to be inspired by Tony Robbins, it's not going to really work for you that well. It's honestly knowing who you are, where you stand, what you believe in. If there's areas you need to improve on them, where you know who you are, but you need to modify those things, but you'll still be an improved version of who you are, that's fine. But if it works for you, for me, whenever I talk about this stuff, I'm talking about my values, guys, and I hope that what you see through my, lexical descriptions about what's good, what's right, what's just, my virtues, they will maybe help inspire you about your own how. You don't have to have my values. You don't have to think, speak, and have a compass directed like me. But I hope what this discussion does is fire people up to be their own autonomous self, like I'm trying to be, and relate to people fairly and have good conversations, work things out for yourself, maybe help someone else conversationally like this or in real life. Just the Guy continues, isn't it possible to have a meaningful relationship with a like-minded person outside the traditional constraints? Sure, but let's look at history. Let's look at the success rate. How many people do you know? I'm not saying it's not possible, but for me also, how many people do I know with my particular architecture of life and what I want, my virtues? I don't want kids, but I want largely a lot of other traditional things in life too. Aside from kids, aside from kids isn't a small thing. I objectively agree. That's a large part of the traditional puzzle, if you want. But I'm not traditional in a lot of other respects as well. But most of the things I expect and the tranquility that comes from relationships I've seen, those relationships largely are or completely are traditional. I realize where I'm not, and I just can't fake that side, like having kids. And so I need to be realistic about, cherry pick from the buffet of what works in relationships. Go up to that buffet with my plate and go, yes, this in my plate. No, not that. That doesn't taste good for me. I know people like it. And just have a plate walking away from the workable buffet of relationships that works for me. So, yeah, I think that's the best most of us can do. Coffee, sorry. Let's see if it focuses on, come on, focus. Oh no, sorry, I've got on face detect. It doesn't look like a face. I suppose it's good. If I kind of do this, it doesn't lose my face. Okay, the light's going in and out, so apologies for it being dark. I was up the coast this yesterday with family. It was really nice. Swam in a pool at, it was a Airbnb. Swam in a pool for the first time since I was like 8 years old. Like I've just been to beaches because there's a lot of beaches around Melbourne and coastline. But in terms of being in a pool, I just realized that it was really nostalgic. I remember just kind of playfully, I did a roll in the pool and I got water up my nose, and it just brought back a nostalgic vision of like when I was a child, just because I haven't experienced those sensations in such a long time. And this 51-year-old guy did a bomb for the first time in about 40 plus years. They were making fun of me, but I didn't care. Yeah, just the guy continues, when it comes to long-term relationships, men invest much more than women and have way more to lose, not to mention women change their minds about things. I get it. It's a cliche rhetoric because it's generally true. I agree. But again, why would you have a long-term relationship? The vetting process, if we're going to be honest here, I'm being honest with you, right? I'm agreeing with you generally. But let's be honest too, most of us, we meet someone that's okay, we cross our fingers, we hope for luck, and we think there's very little skill involved, and we just hope it works out. I'm saying, when are we going to get sick of turning up to dates and just hoping it works out and let's see what happens and blah, blah, blah. That see what happens mentality, it's fine if you're not serious, if you're enjoying time between, lightning striking for you. But then when you get to a point, I'm sick of this. I'm going to stay single, or if that rare person comes out, I'll be able to sort of judge when that's real. So if anyone's wondering why this pen looks weird, it's because it's a stylus. It's not a real pencil. So yeah, guys, if you want to ask me a question during this stream, either super chat me or add 3 yellow or brightly colored circles before your question. Jack Dawes says, why the continuous focus on relationships? Pretty much anyone here knows the pitfalls with women. Yeah, be very honest too. I'm talking about a very subjective way to gauge relationships. Everyone else seems to talk about general relationships. All women are like this. Most women, when you roll the dice, they all work out like this. I'm saying don't roll the dice. And this is the blind spotting conversation, the very subjective, empirical way people learn and try to have relationships or decide not to. But if it's just, I've got no control, this is the way the world is, and I have no control over the choices with people, with life at all here, it's all just, fate. I'm not interested in that. And I have too many examples in my life, including my partner, where it's skill and also saying my yeses and nos and knowing when to say no to people and knowing if they're just a booty call and knowing if this is a person that might go somewhere, because when I'm talking, I can see their virtues, their values. They're talking about what's important. They know what a serious person for them is, and it matches mine. After a while, when you want to introduce them to friends or family. When you want to take certain steps and commit to them. But asking the question, why talk about relationships, as though guys have got them figured out. Really? Do you? I'm not saying you in particular, Jack, but I talk to guys and they're yelling about them. This is what I don't understand. They're talking about relationships, yelling, pointing to the train wrecks. I mean, why point to the train wrecks? We know what the extreme, ridiculous women are like, and a lot of them, exhibit a range of those kind of women. You're laughing at them, you're banging them, you're Tindering through them, you're entertaining yourself with them, which I think is extremely dangerous. And then on the flip side, the only serious conversations guys have about relationship is like, oh my God, why are women all like this? Well, if you figured it out, generally, stop touching the hot stove of all of those women. I really don't get it. I haven't touched those hot stoves for a long time. It gets me passionate because guys are pretending to take a lot of this stuff seriously while they're just entertaining themselves with it. Because if you wanted to take it seriously, you would not only just look at women generally, you would look specifically at yourself, what you say yes to, how quickly you say no and get rid of trash, and how respectful you are to someone else because you expect that respect back. And if you don't get it, then it's over. I like talking about those things. No one's talking about them. I'm not just talking about relationships, but how I'm talking about relationships is important. And I think a lot of guys are very glib about things. And if you want to be glib, fine. But please, like I just skim over comments that are like the same old thing without any kind of, I don't see any language where the person's actually using their own words and it's reflected a bit and chewed on this. I just see memes, post-it notes of very clever sayings that I don't disagree with, but we are just talking about average women out there. We're just talking about the cookie cutter woman that's out there. And if you just want to go out with cookie cutters, you want to go out with the lemming women out there, which I agree with you. Most of them are these lemmings. Fine, we could talk about them till the cows come home, and we can not talk about them. Like, I have no interest talking deeply about, look at the train wreck. Yeah, look at the train wreck. Fine. Do you want to have relationships with train wrecks? I don't. But I don't think I'm talking about them, if you're honest. Hey, James, how are you? Yes. Hit the like button. I just saw a thumbnail this morning. I think James did a post where I think it was a Rollo. He's appeared on Dr. Phil, if I'm not mistaken. So that's interesting. So this stuff is just becoming mainstream. Like it's the pendulum swung so far that it's really nice to see that men's interests are being noticed now commercially in the mainstream. Haven't you noticed during and after the restrictions around the world that there's much more channels on the internet supporting men, criticizing women. You look at Pearly things, and there's a lot of women now. Yes, they're popular, and it's sad to see that the only time we're taking things seriously is when women are starting to say, even we've gone too far. Where are all the men? And for good reason. We're acting like a bunch of whats. So it's good. Like, unfortunately, my generation went through a really hard time with women. We really didn't have much access to Tinder and having fun. It was just, girl power. And then when social media came out, girl power ramped up. And so it's good to see the pendulum swinging back now, I hope. But hi, James. Jack says, just the guy talked about the unfair levels of investment that men deal with in relationships. Yep, I agree. What are some ways men can invest in themselves first without the need to account for dating? I think if you're not fooling yourself and you really try as hard as you can to stay on point with what's important to you about women and not just have no standards and rely on luck, because if you're relying on luck, women will control everything out there. Any woman you come across will control everything. But if you don't utter a no, if you don't utter a sorry, we're not going on a date, we're not compatible, I'm not messaging you. If your attitude is, I'm grateful, I hope this goes somewhere, she likes me, I can get box. Like if that's your attitude, I'm sorry, you are going to get the results of that. And we all know it. You know it. And I'm not disagreeing with what just the guy said and what you said, Jack. Generally, it's 100% true. Most women, the average woman out there in the middle of the bell curve, I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. They're awful objectively, regardless of who you are. And secondly, the compatibility I would have with those women in the middle of the bell curve, the average woman out there, is like close to none. I'm looking for a unicorn. But I'm looking for less of a unicorn. I've got very, very few options on the edge of the bell curve where I've got my own standards. I lock the door to all the trash that's moving along the freeway, I close the door to all the trash that's moving along on the freeway, all those women, but I leave it unlocked, but only for specific type of women that I vet like a bouncer before she comes through the door, before I give her any more time, before I give her a second date. You get to know them for a long time. Not for them, but for you. All this stuff I'm talking about is for you. I don't care about female strangers. I really don't. Like, they're the majority of the Earth's population. They get all the attention, all the concessions. I frankly hold most of them out there who are crying about the state of dating and relationship. I hold most of them in contempt because 5 minutes of talking to them, it tells you what, like, you deserved what you got. Like, let's look at your history. Let's look at how you conduct yourself. How are you dating? When was your last boyfriend? What were your last 5 boyfriends like? Why did you break up? What do you consider important? Do guys even ask questions? They don't, because they think all women are like this. Well, fine. That's another way of saying there's nothing I can do. I like women, I like box, but there's nothing I can do. If you say that, if you're honest human, you won't get a second date. Good. Yeah, but guys want the second date. That's what guys won't admit. I just want that kind of conversation with relationships. I'm not having the kind of conversations about relationships that other channels are having. Can we admit that at least? You guys just hear the word. It's kind of like today how the algorithm censors words without context. Oh, you said that word. You said women, delete. So you have to spell women with a 0 in it and a number 3 for the letter E. The context of what we're talking about. In context, how many of us are having self-reflective, philosophical conversations where we're proud of building our ethics. So when we go out there, no matter how good she looks, you know what that is in front of you. It is fun unless what comes out of her mouth and her actions show you that she's an exception. Yeah, unicorns, not unicorns don't exist, but the rare exception exists, and I'm sure everyone out there thinks they're rare and exceptional. We're not. But your standards for what works for you, for what's compatible with you, is realistic, and that's exceptional. And that's got the best chance of working. Boffin, he says, "What's wrong with a big white beard?" Nice beard, Boffin. I had one too a while ago. Any more questions? A clever fish, thank you for the super chat. He says, advice for men looking for looking for a virgin wife who will provide lifelong wife. See, you're structurally looking for a person, and I get it. Like, if that's your standards, man, and I wish you luck. That's very structural. Mine's very, very personal. For me, it's like, I know who I am. I need conversation. I need a personality that's similar to mine in virtues and ethics and morals. You're looking for, baby, kids, like you're looking for a very specific structure. I'm looking for a personality and a character. Maybe it's because I'm artistic. I'm not sure. But as long as you know what you're looking for, I'd say there'd be a lot of, there'd be, your chances of finding someone, say, more religious and structurally based from a woman is better than my chances were always. Because mine are they're much more than stochastic. My standards are very, very particular that it's very hard to describe. Mine are kind of like, you can't be told what it is. You have to see it or feel it. So I can only put down on paper what I like and what I want and who I am. And only I can go out there and try and find that honestly with myself. Whereas what you want, a woman with no body count, who's religious, who wants kids, you want the 2.5 kids or whatever, dog, you watch football. I don't know what you want, but you've got a very traditional structure that you both want. I think your chances of finding a woman like that are much higher than mine always were. So yours has a better chance of working than mine ever did. So good luck. And I think that you'll probably have a better chance than I always did. But I can only go by who I am. So any more comments or questions? Georgie says, hello, human. Thank you for taking the time to read my comment last week, though. You made me sound too much like some genius, when in reality, I just let my thoughts settle over some 2 or so years. Don't underestimate yourself. A problem with guys is that they underplay themselves. There's 1 or 2 channels that I respect, and, I admire the guys, and they're so apologetic. Think about the degree to which we put women on pedestals for absolutely nothing, except for, their clothes and, how they display their bodies and stuff. We really admire so much, and we underplay ourselves. We need to have a lot more respect for what we've learned and who we are. I'm not saying you're a genius, but I'm saying guys that really need to objectively realize, compared to sort of most women and guys out there and the average lemming out there, if you're having these kind of conversations, or you want to, or you're self-reflecting, don't place yourself below your station. Objectively, I've got some tact where I'm not gonna, stroke my ego in front of everyone and sort of be cringy. But objectively, I know where I sit on the podium with people my age, the conversations going on. I know where I am objectively on looks for a 51-year-old guys, where I try and better myself physically, mentally, the effort I'm trying to make. So objectively, I'm not going to say I'm anything great or special, but you've got to realistically look at yourself in the hierarchy. And then when you go out there, I see so many guys that they place themselves at 0 and they're on a date with a 3 out of 10, but they see her as like a 9 out of 10. and they see themselves as zeros. But this guy might be objectively an 8. He earns a lot of money. He's funny. He's kind. He's not ugly or whatever. But he just, because of the state of the world and the conditioning, he thinks he's 0. Objectively see your hierarchy. Be a decent human being. Be fair, but don't take any shit either from people. I wish I could read that, James. In Australia, it's a colloquial term, the CUNT. But yeah, I don't think YouTube would like it. So, in terms of the title of this stream, is your relationship a two-way street? And it's in reference to the video chat, the group chat I did last week. Go listen to it. It's nearly 3 hours long with a couple of the guys. And in relation to that conversation, the conversation was called, is your relationship a two-way street? And are some men becoming as unrealistic as women? You know, she's got to be completely in my frame. Nothing she says matters. It's all about me. I'm never being taken advantage of. We're becoming too one-sided, just like women have been for a long time now. And my question is, you know, is your relationship is it a one-way street? Because it shouldn't be. It should be a two-way street. And the question is, was she like that from the start? And let's be honest about this. A lot of guys will say she was like this, she did this, she destroyed the relationship, she just left, she was never kind. And my question is, was she always like this from the start? And let's be honest. And some guys are just trying to save face will say, no, she wasn't. But the more you ask questions, she was. And it's a lot of like these women who say, oh, guys are all bad. I go after bad boys. It's like, why do you go after bad boys? What was he like from the start? Oh, my last ex, he had tattoos all over his neck. He was in jail a couple of times. I liked it because he was rough and, you know, he talked crap to people. He was rude. He got into fights, but it was kind of a turn on. But then he treated me like this, and it's like, well, you picked that kind of person. Stop saying that you're Mother Teresa trying to save a bad person. You are not. You are as bad as him, compatibility-wise. You like those guys. You like bad boys. You like guys with tempers. You like guys who treat you this way. You like guys who have to keep you in your place because you're like a little girl. You can't act mature. Admit to yourself that. Stop saying, well, I'm just a little girl and I like a big daddy who, you know, doesn't let me get out of line. It's like, be honest about your role in all the relationships that titillate you. Most people, I think, are having fetishes. They're not having relationships anyway. If you're into a fetish, like, admit when you're into, you know, putting on a rubber gas mask, you know, and rolling around in jelly compared to, oh, what is a good woman for me? You know, what kind of person do I like hanging out with, watching movies and having a conversation and going out for coffees? There's a very big difference. But now guys with online, like I've had this conversation recently. I don't think guys have a line anymore. It's like, whatever you fetishize online, it's like, why can't I find that woman? It's like, you might as well say, why can't I live in Narnia? You know, I would really love to live in the Lord of the Rings universe. I'm so glad I'm using a dynamic microphone because my stomach just gurgled, and I hope you guys didn't hear that. Phil says, dogs and cats love unconditionally, yet humans do it, we hurt each other. We, unfortunately, we love conditionally, but I think we should because of our nature. Cats, and especially dogs, are great barometers of what unconditional love is, but we can't love unconditionally, unfortunately. If you love unconditionally, you're going to get used. You are. And a lot of guys try to. They love unconditionally. They keep wagging their tail at their girlfriends even after she gets angry, she talks shit. You keep doing everything she wants. You just tag along. You're wagging your tail, happy, grateful for a few treats in the bedroom. You know, she throws you little treats to keep you on the leash, and you're a dog because guys respect dogs. Why do you think guys love dogs? It's a man's best friend because we relate to them. We act that way around women all the time. We relate. There's something about dogs. It's like men love dogs. Men love dogs. they're loyal, they're great. But think about how the parallel of men, dogs, and the way we act with women. Hello to all the people who are just saying hello. So, yeah, have you asked yourself the question, was the woman you're complaining about later, was she like that from the start? And if the more we're honest about those things, the subsequent woman we may meet later in the future, we may automatically realize as like, whoa, I was honest about myself, honest to myself about that thing that I see and feel with this woman before. I can't not see that anymore because I was honest about it before. Just try not to be honest. Try not to lie to yourself, guys. Be honest, be honest, be honest as much as you can, because then you won't be able to lie about situations in front of you. But if you're not honest to yourself and you're always the dog wagging its tail to any girl that will give you a treat, you got to train you've got to be a loyal dog if you want to, because guys love being a loyal dog, in figuratively speaking, not to be walked all over. But realize when you've got a good person, I'm not saying master, but that when you're going to exhibit those traits that make you feel good, like a dog loves, their master, if you're going to exhibit those dog-like traits where you do things for her and you protect her like a dog and things like that, you're going to do it because she's worth it. She's going to have her own dog-like characteristics as well towards you, but you're going to reciprocate in that way. So you're going to both love each other like dogs reciprocally if you go down that path of using dogs as a virtue. Have you ever realized as dog and God are sort of like you sort of word mumble those things together? Jack Dawes says, okay, sorry, Jack. He says, I didn't ask why focus on relationships at all. I said continuous focus because most of the work is focused on yourself and investment in yourself prior to the relationship. That's my point. All that stuff, I've had people say, oh, why don't you, back in the MGTOW days, people were saying, why don't you do a channel focusing on investments as an MGTOW? Well, that's just focusing on the investments. I think all the manosphere stuff is, if you get yourself calibrated with relationships properly, everything else falls in line. Because if you're good in investments, women ruin it if you're not calibrated. And also, I think everything in life is a relationship. It's not just women. I talk about sort of mindsets, habits, bettering yourself in certain ways, and I drop in women and relationships because that's the men's biggest Achilles heel. If you don't like my take on relationships, you're free to watch another channel, Jack. I mean, I'm not a jukebox that you just press the button and I play what you want. Come on. I said continuous because most of the work is focused on yourself, investment and priority. That's my point. Fair enough, But most people are always asking me about those things, asking me questions. 99.9999% of the comments, the questions, the DMs, the super chats, the Patreon, everything is like asking me questions along with donations and comments. Everything's about relationships. And I can't pretend to like, well, okay, I said that bit, now it's on to investments. But then if I talk about, how many things are there to talk about? So if I talk about, say, I'm not business minded as much as, say, you or other people might be. But then after a while, it's like, why are you talking about all that? Why don't you talk about MGTOW in relation to spotting Martians, or in terms of fishing, manosphere / fishing, manosphere / hiking, manosphere / like, how about we get rid of the manosphere? Because when we come down to it, the stumbling blocks in the manosphere, the problems guys have, are primarily about that relationships just keep falling over and they don't make sense. Everything else, once we get a foothold or we're inspired by fitness or productive habits and things, which I do talk about, but I always bring it back to relationships of some way. And like I say, for me, everything is you relating to someone else or something else, which could be a hobby or your work or whatever. So how compatible are you to this person or thing? investments and I don't know, fitness and stuff like that. That's kind of like when you know what you want. Like, yeah, I know, I'm just doing it. And now it's about maintaining that little thing. It's about the choice paralysis. It's about making the wrong choices that I find that are the stumbling blocks with guys. So I continually focus about relationships, and don't forget, I don't just talk about relationships in terms of, I'm not talking about how guys can get relationships. I'm not I'm not a dating advice channel. I'm a choice ethics advice channel. And the hardest ethics and choices guys have to make is the kind of romantic relationships they're trying to have, and the bad choices they do make. So yeah, I try and repeat it, but after a while, I'm tired of repeating. I'm talking about relationships, but not just your people's knee-jerk reaction to relationships being, you know, finding pumpkin, getting married, having children. Relationships in life are where you're going to feel alive the most and have fun with. And it's with people, it's with things, it's with your routines, it's whether you've got a job that suits you or not, if you've got friends that suit you or not, if you've got like a lover that suits you or not. Um, do you think we're living through a time where a woman will turn their back on feminism? I think maybe slowly, I don't know. It's always going to be a ghost, and it may kind of rise up again and go back down, but I don't think, I think we're kind of swinging back a bit. And that's not me saying go back to the plantation. I can just hear an avalanche of guys. Um, but I'd say the evidence from, say, 2.5 years or 3 years ago to now, there's been a gradual talking of men's issues a lot more and taking them seriously, especially from the words of women. Not saying it's easy, but I think we need to rethink relationships and come up with new modalities and realistic ways to approach it and make it a viable, less risky option for men. Maybe you could. Maybe, but again, it's kind of like the people of today. They've got to be the guinea pigs and take baby steps and really talk with your partner, because a lot of relationships, they don't just talk to each other. They keep a lot of stuff unsaid. Women expect men to read their minds. They're not direct, and so if you're trying to have a polyamorous relationship with an indirect woman who doesn't talk, who expects you to read her minds and no means yes, and well, you know what I meant, even if I said this. If you're trying to also have something on top of that that's more difficult, and it's not normalized, like polyamory or multiple partners and all these different made up relationships, good luck to you, but you're going to go through the friction of untested grounds. Look, anything's possible, but you need to be real about it. I think the only way you're going to see if it's workable is if you insist that you and her are always talking and upfront about it. And you need to also be upfront where you think it's working, and then all of a sudden she finds a guy that is better looking, more money than you, and you could see she prefers hanging out with him more. She's better in all ways, and then you don't like it, and you talk, and she's like, "Well, I just enjoy, honesty will reveal the truth of the situation." So, I think there might be some people that deep down they're worried about the nature of men and women, and they know that polyamory and multiple relationships just doesn't work because human nature comes into it. And at the end of the day, when a woman finds the most compatible guy that she's monkey branched her way up, and this is the perfect guy for her, she's not going to want to spend. She's going to want to spend more time with them, and protect other women from that guy. They want to spend more time, and unfortunately, you're going to see her less and less, or she's just not going to want to be in your polyamory relationship. And you might want to spin multiple plates and have like 3, 4 women on the go, where if you lose one, you just fill in the position with someone else. But it's just too much time spent on women. And again, like someone just mentioned that I talk about relationships a lot. I think relationships with you, with other people, and with life in general is important, because that's how you animate yourself in this life. That's what you wake up to. You wake up to things you want to do. You wake up to people you want to do. And if you're honest about the compatibility of those things, that's, I think that's a healthy way to try and understand your life and what you're choosing and what you're not choosing. But yeah, polyamory and multiple partners and hooking up, it's just a herd of cats. I've got better things to do than spin female stranger plates and hope for the best and structure it in the way if one of those plates fail, I just put another plate on there while I'm continually, doing this. But look, I've said, like, whatever you guys want to do, respect you if you're doing it openly, honestly, with a level head. And you don't have very many complaints about the lifestyle you're choosing to have and the choices you're making and the people you're choosing. But when I hear guys are really vociferously complaining about, oh, women and this girl I went out with last week and she did this and this, it's like, why do you keep going out with them? Anymore that we would say the same thing to a woman is like, I went out with this guy and he was like the last and the one before that and he did X, Y, and Z. And they're all laughable traits of awful guys. And it's like, well, serves you right. Yeah, but it's not my fault because he was hot. Well, same with us. Like, oh, it's not my fault. She was hot and she didn't say anything. Why didn't you insist she talk? Why did that little voice inside you, why did you allow it to be, well, that's okay. Or I won't say anything because I don't want hotness to go away. You should be poking and prodding hotness, figuratively speaking, for you dirty-minded guys. Poking hotness as much as you can, provoking them to actually say something and reveal something because you want to be at ease and feel good and safe and comfortable. And all those macho guys that say, men don't need to feel safe because the high-value man isn't afraid of a woman. Well, you'll be afraid of her when you just go to bed with anyone and you have the police knock on your door and cite you with some sort of warning, citation, turn up to the police station, you've been accused of this. You are now liable for child support. Well, that all comes from being too alpha and interpreting what a man is to being sort of just a pre-magnum sort of blind, hormonally driven tough guy with a lot of testosterone and thinking he can endure and weather everything. Yeah, you got a lot of blind courage, I'll give you that, but not a lot of the intelligent, not a lot of the chess-playing intelligence that I admire in guys. So if you're a guy that's, playing chess with life, but you're still making your moves and playing the game, fine. But if you're a guy that's boasting about men invented chess and you refuse to play, well, you'll get the results of that kind of life too. Anyway. John S. says, how much hypergamy do you think women over 50 who have already done the marriage and kids have their own house or ex-husband's house, own money and their own stuff, etc., still have? Short answer is I don't care. It's what you pick. But also long answer is, if you're an older guy, say I'm hypothetically speaking myself, and you meet a woman my age, how she speaks, the level of humble pie she's willing to say and accept in conversation. So if you're talking about her past and she's admitting where she went wrong and you're saying, yeah, you screwed up. Like, I can't believe you did that. You can sort of listen to your own red flags and say, well, yeah, that's too dangerous to go on a date with them. I'm grateful that you admit all that and that you were a train wreck and you used and abused guys and you were an awful person to be with. And I feel sorry for your husband, but doesn't mean I'm going to go out with you. You have to make the choice. This is the thing, guys still, when they're talking this way, and I'm not saying you, John, but guys will talk about, what about a woman and this and this? It's like, who cares? What are you going to choose? Are you going to go out with her? Yeah, but what if she did? Yeah, but are you going to take that risk? Or are you going to talk more and reveal the truth? It's kind of like, well, we've got no power because we can't say no to the box. I'm sorry, like as time goes on, it's not that women are right, it's that you won't make a good choice. We make great choices everywhere else. We'll take our time and pick the best car. Like when we save up, like when I saved up money because I wanted to buy myself a present for my 50th. I bought myself a car I really enjoyed and I loved, right? I had my eye on the car for a few years. And I took my time. I had that conversation. I went, tried it out until I found the perfect car for me. Guys don't do that with women. And it's the biggest choice because of the risk involved or what she could take. She could wipe away 30, 40 years of your life. Even this decision I made with my car, I made it over the course of like a year or two, anticipating, putting all my ducks in a row, playing my mental chess and really investigating, test driving and all that stuff. Guys, don't do it with women. And all they do is they just buy a red Ferrari because it's red and goes fast. And then later on it's like, oh my God, the maintenance. Oh my God, this and this happened. I got a speeding ticket. I had no idea. It's like, come on, man. What did you think you were buying? So I'm not blaming men, but I'm not letting us off the hook because this stuff is just going to continue to happen. Look at the way the world is with women. They're not stopping until you stop. You know? Have a listen again to this conversation I had with the guys on my chat channel. Have an open mind a bit. We're not talking about you. We're talking about, ways in which men could actually have less risk with women given the way they're choosing women. That's all it is, right? Crummy VCR says, if the other person is not clear in communication and says, you should know, or you should know what I mean, that's a huge red flag. I agree. If a person cannot communicate, then I say they are not developed. I agree. Don't go out with them. Yeah, but human, look at her. Well, take that risk. You're going to pay for it, not me. I think that somehow subconsciously or in a word salad way, whenever I say what I say about women, I'm not telling you to go out with them or whatever, but when I say to speak your mind and whatever, and if a man's defense is, well, LOL, you'll never get laid, or women can still leave you and stuff, it's a way of saying, I don't trust myself with women. All women are the same. There's nothing I can say or do or see, or I don't trust my judgment. That's all I hear. Because when I used to really believe that all women were the same, and no matter what I did, no matter how intelligent I was, no matter how much of this stuff I knew, 100% I knew this about women. Why did I keep falling over? Why did I find myself in the same situation? Well, how many times do you have to repeat the same thing? And for me, it's kind of like, yeah, I can just not engage with women. That's one solution. But I can't negate all the cowardly solutions I'm not choosing simply because they're uncomfortable and I'm too afraid. And yeah, I just don't do that though. I just don't talk. I just don't tell women my mind. I can't talk to them like I do online in my videos. I can't. You're just being a coward, human. Just admit. Like no judgment, like it's not a priority for you to stand up for yourself intelligently and with your words. Just admit it. It's not a priority for you. Well, it is a priority. Well, it's not because you're not doing it. Be honest with yourself. If you can't speak well, modify your behavior. Learn to speak a bit better. And don't put yourself in front of train wrecks, obvious hot train wrecks until you can, because they're going to destroy you. Hey, Mr. Highway, how are you, man? I hope you're well in South America. He says, men who obsess over female nature usually have no clue about their own. Yes, well put. Female nature, female nature, female nature. What about your nature? Oh, human, you just talk about relationships. I'm trying to talk about them. Like, we know female nature, all of us, including me. I can agree with you. If you spout certain things, the cliches that are honest and true cliches, and I will stand there holding up the sign saying, yep, you are right, sir. Most women are like this. Their nature is like this. But how many times when you start saying, yeah, but men's nature and our choices and the dance we have to get the best dance possible, we should be taking these steps. No. I don't take any steps. I don't know how to dance. She drags me around the dance floor. Why are you letting her drag you around the dance floor? Don't dance with those people. He says that's why they don't know what they want or even need in a relationship. Yeah, how many, like women stand up for what they need. They rudely tell you, like, you need to wear a different shirt. You wearing that? Oh my God, you're 5 minutes late. Oh my God, don't do that. Seriously? Let's go watch this movie. I want to do this. They just tell you, they don't care. They stand up for what they want all the time, even if it's ridiculous. But if you don't say no to any of it, then it's like you get that relationship. It's not yours. I realized that a long time in the embarrassing moments where I just kept having other people's relationships I just had Jane's net relationship, Sue's relationship, Mary's relationship. I didn't have a relationship with them. I was kind of like a trailer hitched up to the back of their car, and they were driving wherever they wanted. And I had a really bumpy ride. But look, no one likes to be criticized. I get it. But the more you criticize yourself objectively and compassionately and like a best friend, the stronger you become and the less crap you take. Come on, really? I spilt not my coffee. Yeah, well, this is the problem. Someone just asked about older women, like, they're single mums, they're older now, and I gave the case of myself if I came across one. Rocket Scientist said something interesting. He says, 80s feminists now pretend they had nothing to do with it. Well, the guys my age, if you meet older women, it's like, you were the women my age that I had so many problems with. I am really going to have the magnifying over our conversation, over the conversation I insist we have on a date. You don't want to talk, you don't have that option on a date with me. Otherwise, it's going to be over anyway. But I want to know what's under the skin. I'm going to peel this onion back. And if these 80s, 90s women that I had so much trouble with, well, mine were in the 90s and early 2000s women, if you're my age, you went through the period with me and you were most of the women I had problems with. So I'm really going to be listening to your words and your excuses and your avoidance of topics you don't want to talk about, because we're going to talk about everything, because I love talking about this stuff with a smile on my face. And if you're very serious and you got that door closed, well, it's the one and only date I'm going to be on with you. But I agree with Rocket. Like, I'm very critical of women my age and just below, because they gave me the most problems. They spurred most of the MGTOW channels and all of the information that the guys now who are in their 20s are learning from. And online, all the women that are showing who they are now, their worst character traits. So yeah, like, sorry. Well, you can't say, oh, don't judge my past. Like, why not? If I had neck tattoos and I'd be in jail twice, you'd judge me, and rightly so. I have to be responsible and pay penance for my past. Well, sorry, the window of people that'll accept me are very narrow, and I can kick and scream and say the world's unfair. Well, bad luck. They're not going to choose me. This is the thing that a lot of women don't realize, especially the girl power chicks, is like, they think that men don't have a choice. They're not real human beings like them that have the right to a choice of a good person, including their past. So these women, they can say, oh, don't judge me, don't judge me. I had a girlfriend like that in the past. I don't like people who judge me. And then after a while, I realized why she didn't like that. I mistakenly thought it was like she didn't like criticism. It's like, yeah, I don't like people unfairly criticizing me or talking down to me. But after a while, I realized she was ashamed of her past. If you're not ashamed of your past, you don't care about talking about anything. And I realized that about most of the women I went on dates with. They didn't want to talk about relationships, their past. They just wanted to talk about here and pretend they were reborn in this moment, because they wanted to be a different person in the future. They wanted a different kind of relationship. But I have to also vet her based on where she's come from. I can't just say, well, I'll commit to you and I'm going to trust your will. It's like trusting someone who's morbidly obese and saying, yeah, I'm going to start my diet on Monday. Go out with me. It's like, I'm happy for you. Maybe we message each other in like a couple of years and see where you're at. How about that? Jackdaw says, I say, if we have at least one priority in life besides relationships with women, that gives us ground to hold, that gives us something to protect, that causes us. Yeah, that's also something to have an interest away from women. I remember that was my first red flag that I actually felt and knew to be true was in my early 20s. Like, I've always drawn and been into illustration. And I remember my first serious relationship, when I would be sketching, she would like laugh at it and say, like, look, I'm not going to end up with a starving artist. And that really hurt me. Like, it was like, oh God, I just feel a big distance between you and me and her. And Women who make fun of something you care about or the people in your life you care about, that's an obvious red flag when you get older. But when you're younger and you don't have a rule book with this stuff, you need to pay attention to obvious insults. You need to respect and really love something apart from women. You really need to really fall in love with something in your life. And then when you see someone disrespect something in your life or someone you love, then that should really tell you to stand up for them. If you have nothing to wake up for apart from women, they're going to walk all over you. Prince Revolver, thank you for the super chat. He says a lot of guys are going to continue to struggle because they're trying to be in two relationships. That is very interesting. One with a woman and a potential woman, the other with gurus and the red candy community. I would actually say, when I heard you say that, two relationships, they are trying to live their life and they're trying to be in a relationship. That's what I initially thought you were going to say, but that's true too. One with a woman or a potential woman, they've got their imagination of what she's going to be like. And the other with gurus and the red candy community. But I would say most guys have their real life, me on my own, me with my video games, me with my friends, me with my family. And then I've got this other life where it's almost like another job where I've got to show up dressing, quacking like a duck and walking like a duck. Disco Cobra 2013, nice name. He says, I follow many personalities on the web, love gaining new perspectives. You take a very calculated approach to relationships. I tend to get black pills sometimes, still remaining hopeful for a decent woman, just being patient until that day comes. You see, like a lot of the black pill stuff, again, I can't disagree with some of the stuff that they say is true because it objectively is. But I just there's too many examples of people we admire. Whatever you think of their personality, like David Goggins, Elon Musk, extreme personalities that kind of might be laughable, Andrew Tate, whatever it might be, right? None of those guys are like, oops, life happens. Oops, one day you're buried and there's no point. Oops, there's no free will. There is free will, depending how calculatedly stubborn you pursue something and how nerd-like and obsessed you are with something or someone or how you go about it. If you're a consumer of to me, it's the difference between someone who just watches football and enjoys being entertained and just doesn't have an interest in terms of the forensics of going into it, and someone who wants to who wants to play football, kick the football around, plays for a team, he's trying to better and better himself in that thing. Again, self-reflection. But I do take a calculated approach and a very philosophically calculated approach because I think that the answers to a lot of these problems guys have with women, again, is not just talking about what most women do, which I tend to agree with. I do, but that's not where we're trying to have relationships. And a lot of guys are trying to these days by just hooking up with them. So we're trying to have these distance relationships out there with the average woman. And so we confirm what they're like because we're having these distant relationships with strangers. But the moment you're honest with yourself and saying, I hate that, it's a train wreck, it's a herd of cats, it's just constantly disappointments, being humiliated and blah, blah, blah. I want to have one here where I can hold it and lock it in a cage and the rest of the freeway of the world can go about doing their own garbage. I want something here. That's the conversation I want to have, the choices we make as guys. Oh. Because I asked the question, after physical attraction, these are the top two things I look for in a woman: kindness and similar values. They're always at the forefront. If I met someone and then as I start to get feelings like I like being around them, I start to ask why. I'm very interested in diving down like the whys through conversation, wanting to talk to them again and really ask those questions and get into those. And her reciprocating that same interest and enjoying those conversations. Mine were kindness and similar values. And someone pointed out that kindness is a value. I get it. So it's just really similar values. But out of those values, what's the number one? Kindness. Is she a kind and decent person? Realistic, humble, respectful, the way she treats people in the street, you. Does she listen to you? Is it all about her? When you're talking, does it feel like you're just talking to yourself? Are you actually really having a conversation with someone else? And are you interested in what she's saying? That belies a compatibility between you as well. So there's a super self-awareness and a conscious, as was mentioned, a calculated conscious approach of like being present and knowing like I'm enjoying this conversation and why, and you're communicating that why in a nice feedback loop. And so for me, it's like, are your values just a nice to have, guys? Or do you really really care about those things? Most of the people just think that this happens. Nature, biology, she's hot, and I cross my fingers and I hope to have a nice person because, women are so hard to get and they're so entitled. We know the right thing to do, but it's just harder, takes more time. There's no guarantee you may be in the same spot, but it's not like it takes. See, the thing is, when you're running after luck and the average woman, you're expending a lot of energy. But when you say, I'm closing that door and there's only one kind of key that can let in the narrow, specific type of women, you're not running after them anymore. Either they cross your path in the stable life you decided to do, or you don't see them anymore. Because it's like now I see a really cool Ferrari or a Bugatti go by. It's like, cool car, not my world. Because I know what kind of man I need to be to, live in that world and gain that car. And it's nice enough, but not beyond the point of the maintenance required, the lifestyle, all the kind of stuff. So it's the same with like hot woman, great, yeah, but I know what that kind of person would be like if they dropped in my life, what effect they would have, and what kind of person I would need to be to maintain that unicorn. And usually they're a mirage. You think, oh, hot woman, and I hope she's also like a nerd like me who plays video games and she just likes staying home. Really? A stripper-looking hot chick like that's like so like just like she's like going to Disneyland. Like, do you really think she's going to enjoy living in your world? Because I'm pretty sure you're going to get tired of her roller coaster world pretty quickly. I had a question. What are your thoughts about dating apps? Do you think that stats are totally against men? They are, again, but don't use dating apps or use them sparingly. It's like social media in general. A lot of people take detox because they can't help themselves. They just need to. They have to admit, like, I'm addicted to this thing. Like, I need to detox. I need to delete Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I need to delete them off my thing because I can't help myself. I'm sorry. Um, I'm like a fat bastard to donuts. That's it. That's the truth. You know, I want to get better. I'm tired of waking up and feeling bad about myself. Do what you need to do. Doing what you have to do is seldom fun. Name me one thing that's fun. Doing the right thing. Can't tell me. Whereas doing the wrong thing is almost always enjoyable, but the consequences almost always aren't. Chromie VCR says, Black Pill is truth, but yeah, I'm glad you wrote a lowercase t on truth, but it doesn't mean that the truth is always consistent as the most life situations. Look, Black Pill truths are consistent insofar that they're very stationary. Like, you don't really move, you accept what is, and you just kind of wait for the grave. And they're consistent, but for me, it's the quality of life too. Because I've noticed that all that's stopping me having a better time in my life is that I just face very, very childish fears, very small fears, like kind of ripping off a Band-Aid, like a momentary, like uncomfortable, but I'm so grateful that I did it. The rewards of facing irrational fears or just taking a step because you're too lazy or sort of afraid from a 5-year-old perspective, the rewards of actually just facing those 5-year-old fears and growing up just a bit are just exponential. My life, when I started to become more honest, talking more conversationally realistic about life, relationships, choices, ethics, morals, things like this, my life has become demonstrably better. Demonstrably. You don't have to take my word for it. Use trust your feelings, as a Jedi would say. how do I speak? How do you, my demeanor, my expression, or are you just going to say, well, he's faking it. I bet his life isn't the best. You are using defensiveness. Like my life is a lot better than it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And it's because of my attitudinal shift. Where things didn't work, I adjusted, or I just threw away garbage that didn't fit anymore. And guys will say, hypocrite. They'll look at a video I made when I started my channel, when I was venting, when I wasn't self-reflecting as much, and I'll say, see, humans are hypocrite now. Yeah, I kept going. I didn't keep repeating. I kept going my own way. I didn't just like loop the current way. I have got, from swimming in a pool yesterday, I've got some sort of residue at the back of my nose that I can't shake this morning. I'll shake it later, if you know what I mean. Tom Cook, thank you very much for the donation. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for coming by and listening. So, yeah, are your values nice to have? Because values, they're not sexy. They're boring conversations on dates, I admit it. But that's why I keep telling guys to, not telling guys, like heavily suggesting and offering guys to speak better and communicate what's important to them, because I can have a lot of fun on dates talking this way. And I could, the way I can kind of, how I enjoy having these live streams with you guys. I'm this way in front of women romantically if I went on a date. So I'm just saying, learn maybe from this, or the way you can be more honest with yourself to get the things you want. That's all I wish for you guys, because I'm going to keep going this way because my life is getting better and better. So is there something you can learn from the way I go about things? I hope so. Otherwise, I literally am talking to myself. So this has always been a video diary of the things that are important to me, and a video essay of me trying to get better, and conversing with guys that are trying to do the same in their own way. And the conversations I've had with some of you guys in the comment section and recently in recorded chats has proven that. Again, go and listen to the recent group chat I had with a couple of the guys on my chat channel, link below. If there's any last questions or super chats, guys, can you like Disco Cobra, thanks for the super chat. Either super chat me like Disco Cobra here, and I'll definitely read it out, or if you're in this stream live, put 3 yellow emojis just before your question. Like David's here, long-time subscriber. He says, guys need to be accountable to themselves. Yes, because we know women aren't. Most women out there don't care about the guy. They care about themselves and how men treat them. That's how they get that loop of, I love this guy, I like this guy, because of how I feel around him. And how they feel around him is what he does, how safe he makes her feel, blah, blah, blah. So it's not about you, it's about what you do and how you make her feel. And the only thing you're going to do, instead of us getting online and complaining about how unfair and uncaring women are, and they don't, and she'll never love you, blah, 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 is you have to start caring about yourself. And a lot of guys who keep complaining, and the moment I start talking about accountability and having boundaries and what do you want, and they start always making excuses about, biology, women will never date you, this, you'll never get anywhere, like that'll work. The moment I hear that, it's like, well, you don't care about yourself. You only have women's values. So when you talk about nature, biology, women this, hypergamy that, you know a lot about women's values. You do. You know about all roads lead to women. You're an expert at that. But where are you? There's no roads that lead to you in this conversation. Yeah, it's over there, but that's not interesting. I'm not interesting. Oh, you're not interesting. Is that right? Let me offer, maybe that's what women think about you too. Let me offer, maybe that's why you keep getting discarded and you feel bad because part of it is that, you should care about yourself a lot more. You should care about her a lot less until she's proven little by little that you can care about her more, that she deserves your respect. But it's up to you guys. We could talk about, like, we could just, like people sometimes say, human, you talk about relationships. Guys are happy to just regurgitating the same memes, like about hypergamy and the laws and all that. Like, how many times am I going to hear exactly the same stats talked about exactly the same way with exactly the same phrases? No nuance, no new stats, no new female nature, no new ways, yet that's great. And we entertain ourselves with that and we feel good, like, oh, they're bad, we're good, so we feel good about ourselves. But no one wants to talk from a self-reflective point of view, a philosophical point of view, where given all that, what am I going to do about it? Because I'm not waiting around. Life's too short for me to wait around for women to change or the world to change or the stats to get fairer. I'm going to do the best with what I can where I am, where I live. And if it gets too uncomfortable, then sorry, I'm moving elsewhere. I'm changing my modus operandi. Disco Cobra says, not sure if you ever heard of Roma Army or Pearl. Yeah, I've heard of those two chicks. Roma Army's the one with the big tats everywhere. And she seems fine. She, again, visually, I would be resistant just because of all the tattoos. But then again, that's my standard. What she says, she seems fairly switched on. Pearl as well. I've watched a bit more of her videos. She's very stat-driven, very logical, very STEM-based, which, like, yeah, I kind of respect a lot of what she says. But she has those roundtable conversations with kind of the really low-grade pedestrians that just argue all the time. Like, there's just kind of like a clickbait podcast with people talking over each other. And frankly, with people that don't speak very well at all. So they kind of, it's like I'm listening to children. But I appreciate that more women are getting men's point of view. So I really do. But yeah, I don't mind them. Roma has 1 million subs. She's basically MRA. Those are some of the women I follow in the manosphere. Yeah, I see them. I can only watch, like, for instance, Pearl's great, but she's just repeating bumper sticker memes that we've known from the beginning. Like, that for me is like, yeah, good for you. Keep saying it, but I can't listen to a broken record saying exactly the same words to people who are frankly a bit stupid and they've just discovered, like, oh, my girlfriend left me, my boyfriend left me. Low-grade pedestrian men and women who are kind of entitled and they haven't sort of really, like, it's kind of very basic stuff. And, like, I really hope they keep doing it because there's a part of the men and women in on the internet and on YouTube that really need it. They haven't heard about this stuff. And it's like, are you kidding? I knew about this stuff like 20, 30 years ago. So it is very necessary. Like back in the day, Sandman is very necessary, especially for guys who've just seen all this stuff and they need to learn the fundamentals. I think Pearl and Roma Army, a lot of women need to hear this stuff from a basic point of view because a lot of them, you watch their videos, the women they have in podcasts, they look dumbfounded, like, what? Men feel this way? Men have feelings? I never saw that before. Like, there's so many light bulb moments to women that they realize, oh, this guy, he could be my brother. This is the way I treated this guy and I never saw him is like how my brother's treated by women, or like I never knew guys existed emotionally. And you think, like, it's annoying, but at least they're starting to consider guys as human beings. Not many, but at least there's something to be said for that. So any last questions, guys? Let's wrap it up. We've been going for about an hour and a half. And let's see. Any last questions? Any last super chats? Any last 3 yellow circled questions to me, and I'll answer them, and then we'll call it a day. You guys can enjoy your Sunday here in Australia or Saturday evenings and go to bed in the US or wherever you are. getting really hot here. It was about 35 degrees yesterday, and it feels like it is as well today. Constantly reading her body language and asking her core questions can save you from having a headache and heartache. Agree. Yes, yes, yes. Be there on a date. Be there instead of, mute. Shadow Ghost, thank you very much for the donation. I really appreciate it, man. Thank you. If Human had neck tattoos and been in jail twice, he'd have women throwing themselves at him. Look, if I had neck tattoos and been in jail twice, I still think with my personality, I would take it on the chin and go, well, I know people are going to judge me this way. I know if I was looked a certain way, people are superficial before they get to know you. So from a distance, like how stupid is it? Like from a distance, you're going to judge superficially. It's a primitive instinct like, oh, I'm protecting myself by what I see. There's a natural defense to protect yourself before you've gotten closer. Women do it all the time. They walk alone at night and they're a bit sort of apprehensive when a man or men are walking towards them alone at night. But guys just don't have that with women because they think, well, they're not going to hurt me. They will today. Not physically, but emotionally and just life-wise. Guys need to just consciously train themselves to just talk to women and not be afraid to say something. Then you'll reveal the bad person that can threaten you. Ken G says, Human, when you first started out, you used to say that you were making these videos as if you were giving advice to your younger self. And I'd say, as a consequence, it's that way still. I would have loved this kind of conversation earlier on. I basically fumbled my way into being more honest, but if I would have had someone whose voice really resonated with me personally, like my own now, the mature version of me, and I've if you think about it, some of your favorite channels, the way they talk, their inflection, their life experience, the words that they string together to form the sentence that really is a light bulb moment for you are those kind of people that you just feel like they're your kind of people you connect with. I would have benefited from this kind of video, this voice from an older version of me. I could have avoided a lot of mistakes. I would have learnt a lot of this stuff sooner because they were coming from someone who was thinking like me. So I don't care that I'm not really like other channels because none of them really told me much beyond a certain point. You get to a point where, yeah, I know what women are like. Yeah, another horror story that's like mine that I've heard 100 times before. And yeah, sympathize. And we're all brothers and women are all like, it's like, but we're not talking about, but I wish it wasn't like that. And if it wasn't, how could it not be like that? What can I do? What can I choose to do? Where can I not be anymore? Where can I choose to be, even though it's less comfortable and I'm not going to get as many opportunities? But the opportunities I will have will be of better quality. It might cost me more in being uncomfortable. It might cost you a little bit of time. You might need to move from where you are and move somewhere else. I don't know. But the more honest we can be to ourselves to change our situation, the better, I think. Mr. Highway says, so many people unfortunately don't know what you mean when you say that. Be there. Yeah. It's like, for me, it was like, I would go on dates and it's like, I'm excited to have this time. Like I go there expecting to have fun with a potential friend, have a good conversation, relax. I'm not thinking into the future and I'm like there wanting to talk to them and enjoy this time. Whereas guys are kind of like, they're not there. They're waiting for that time to lead them onto the next date. I'm not even thinking of the next date. to tell you the truth. I don't know if I conditioned myself. Like I was always very much of a control freak the younger I was, less so now, but very aware of where I am. And I didn't like promising too far into the future if I didn't really feel that natural jump. If it was very close to the future, like for instance, if she said, like I didn't feel comfortable with her right away. And if they're saying, I want to get married, I want to have a family, it's like, whoa, you've just created a lot of distance between us. Like I can't even think about, I can't think of the cart before the horse. Disco Cobra says, ever thought about doing collabs with Better Bachelor or other, like Coach Greg Adams? Not sure what happened to Coach Red Pill. He was okay at times. Not sure what happened to him either. Yeah, I don't mind those guys. I like them because they present well. They're talking about some of the things that I find, or actually most of the things that I find interesting. Everyone does something slightly different. In terms of personality, I try and gauge them. Like, for instance, some of those guys I think I would gel with a bit better, even if we talk from different perspectives. So, for instance, I think Better Bachelor's a pretty good guy. Like, I like his personality. He's a really, really decent guy from what he does. So, for me, he's like a 10 out of 10, but we talk about very different things. But I think a conversation with him would be pretty good, just on a personal level, just like a chat. And also maybe my kind of audience and his kind of audience, like they tend to be different. Maybe kind of cross-pollinating and like learning different things would be good. Coach Greg Adams, I haven't watched much of him. From what I did in the past, again, he seems like a really stand-up kind of guy. I like his personality. I like Rollo's personality too. They're all intelligent, well-spoken. Although Coach Greg Adams, for me, seems more like of a dating kind of guy. Talking about, he's more in that wheelhouse. But again, I think I could talk to all of those guys. So yeah, I wouldn't be adverse to any of them. It's just a matter of time and the right things aligning where we get in contact and do it. But yeah, I like all of those guys. I have nothing against them. But yeah, I would welcome that. Ikari says, what can a guy... Oh, also Disco, thanks for the super chat too. I appreciate it. Ikar says, what can a guy do when he starts noticing his relationship is becoming a one-way street? Unfortunately, sometimes women just put on an agreeable mask until you're committed and exclusive and, you know, she knows she has you, and then she starts to relax and the real her comes out. As Ernest Hemingway once said, the only way to trust someone is to trust them. What I'm saying is for us to have this conversation about learning the best way to try and trust someone, talking, insisting on these fun interrogative discussions where she's as interested in revealing a lot about her past, what she thinks, values and things. So when you notice someone doesn't want to talk about those things, where they could actually be hiding who they are via not communicating, those are the ways in which you can learn to make better judgments in trusting people. So unfortunately, sometimes you come across a woman who's very skilled at being manipulative. You come across narcissists, you come across people who are just very skilled and they just operate in being the wolf in sheep's clothing until they have you cornered, and then they take the sheep's clothing off. And then the thing to do is learn to leave early and stand up for your values, to insist on reality and seeing that, yeah, she was acting, or now she was like this. She was never like this before. And having that discussion, you know, where did this come from? You were never like this before. And if she's like, I was always like this, or she says, oh, I want kids. I know I didn't before, but I'd scare you off if you did. So you lied. Know what to say. Even learn, start writing it down. How will you stand up for yourself if she drops the mask? How will you stand up for yourself when she says some girl power phrase? How would you stand up for yourself when she was so agreeable on the same page, lying and putting a mask on, and then you see she dropped the mask and she admits she had a mask on? What will you say? Like, how will you speak?
Or will you be a deer in headlights going, all right, reboot the hard drive, reboot the computer, hopefully everything will be fine again. You don't want to do that. You don't want to feel like you're rebooting your hard drive every time she corners you. And there's a lot of the talking points that have been discussed to death about women, where they manipulate and go back on their word. There's enough of them everywhere where you can just jot that, like the first 10 or 15 down, and you should be able to know where you stand. Online, we all know what the right thing to do is, and that's not right. But how come we don't speak that way when we come across them in front of Chicky Poo on a date? We don't, because we're a 5-year-old in front of an adult, figuratively speaking. We need to be the adult all the time. We just need to be it. And you can say how, but it comes down to you. Writing, thinking, speaking, being the person you are online here with the guys. Start practicing it in small doses at the supermarket. Talk with the cash register. Say hello to people. Don't be afraid of yourself in conversation, because she wants to find that out. But if you're curating yourself like a job interview, then again, you're going to get the predictable results of that. Anyway. Any last questions, guys? 3 yellow circles in front of your question, or super chat me and we'll end it in 30 seconds or so. Good discussion today. Any last questions? Any last super chats? I'm always going to be talking about the way guys have their relationships in life, the choices they make, not about women, but about how you have relationships with women, whether you do, whether you don't, what's your relationship philosophy? What's your moral code? What rules do you have that conveniently just crumble to dust when you're in front of a hot chick? Those are the things that are important that no one's discussing. Pointing to the obvious ontological things that women do badly and unfair, yes, I agree. They're out there, and I will agree with you. But we're always going to fall into those traps if we don't talk about the other side, what steps we take, and whether or not we're just hoping a trap doesn't reside in an area where we want to walk into blindfolded just because it feels good, just because she's hot, just because she gives good BJs, who cares? Really, we can laugh like a 5-year-old. She's hot. She's great in bed. But then when things fall apart and she destroys your life, then you're not a 5-year-old, are you? Then you're a 30, 40, 50-year-old guy going, oh my God, let's talk serious. It's like, there's no point talking serious over and over again when you only talk serious afterwards. When you don't talk seriously on a date, when you insist on being a 12-year-old horny teenager on every single date, and then it's only after when you start noticing reality with her and you notice how ashamed you feel and you didn't say yes when you should have or no when you shouldn't, then you're an adult, then you're a 40-year-old. It's like, I can't, because you're not wanting to be honest. I want to be honest with you guys in conversations. I want to have those discussions. But if you're conveniently avoiding you acting like a 5-year-old during dating, then I can't pretend you're an adult. Let's be more honest. I want to have those discussions, because I don't think those discussions with relationships are being had. We're talking about post. We're talking about, I was too nice, I was too trusting, she lied to me, and afterwards, blah, blah, blah. It's interesting. But if we're just going to rewind, cross our fingers, and think that it's all luck without any skill on our part from learning from our past, I mean, how many of the same kind of women that you're attracted to in a cookie cutter way, they just dress a little bit differently, have different colored hair, slightly different body shapes, talk in a slightly higher pitch, lower pitch, different experiences. It's just because she tells you that she grew up as an Italian chick and went to this high school and she's got these friends and she likes these TV shows, and it's different to the other girl you went out with who was Scandinavian who liked different TV shows, who had different friends. It's like that's not much of a difference. So are you surprised that you're accepting the same average kind of woman that's just okay and nice and you get along with, and you believe, like religion, it's just luck because my choices stop at hot and she's just okay to be around and let's see where it goes, rather than vetting a lot more specifically and with a finer tuned laser pointed towards, no, we're focusing here, sweetheart. We're not talking too broadly. Broadly's fun, but what's going to make this stay on track is here in this bubble. We're not talking enough about that. We are talking in too much of a powerless sort of nature law sort of stuff, which is true. But that stuff comes in later when you've already made a choice with your hormones. It's like, let's try and who was it? It was a psychoanalyst. What was his name? Where he said, lead with your heart, but always take your head with you. And guys do not take their head with them. They remember to bring their head along once they're in a relationship, they've had kids, they're having unprotected sex, all that sort of stuff, right? That's when they start, oh yeah, my brain. The initial butterflies have lessened. I'm with her now. It's like, okay, now what about my brain? Let's switch it on. It's like, whoop, too late, buddy. Too late to think about stats and all that sort of stuff. When you're in the moment of those initial dates and the honeymoon period, your brain is all emotion. It's all about primitive, like get her into bed. But you need to bring the adult along to chaperone you during those times. Enjoy a good time, but if you sort of say, oh, the adult me, you can stay home on these dates. It's like, well, okay. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. Ryan says, any thought on passport bros? Just by the name, I don't think much of them because I think if they're the kind of guys that just go to Thailand and just have a bit of fun here and there. Again, too much money and time and effort. I agree that women overseas tend to be better. They do, depending on which country you come from. Western women tend to be a lot worse. Your chances of finding a good woman in the West are demonstrably lower than in other countries. And depending on the country, that your chances are higher and higher. And if you decide to stay in those countries, the chances are higher and higher, depending on how she's raised and yada, yada, yada. Again, it comes down to your personal choice. You can't just rely on, okay, the answers are there. The answers are better over there, but I still need to bring myself there and make my judgments and yeses and nos and decide what I want. You can't be invisible and let the stats and nature and countries you visit speak for you. I want guys not to be invisible. Like I insist on not being invisible in conversations with women. That's where my life improved. I insist on not being invisible about what I need in my life with my jobs and routines and my habits, physical and mental disciplines, things like that. I can't just say, well, it's not my fault. McDonald's is on every corner. What do you want me to do? It's like, don't go to McDonald's. I know it's tasty. Yeah, but go get fat. I don't care anymore. I'm tired of it. I was once like you. I was once a person chowing down on McDonald's, blaming McDonald's for getting me fat. It's not McDonald's fault. In fact, you'll get less McDonald's out there the more you don't choose it, the less you turn into the drive-through. They're hard choices, but they're true. And I'm not blaming men. I'm asking men to be responsible for their own happiness because women don't care about your happiness. They just care about theirs. And theirs are deranged, some of theirs. They just care about their own happiness like a 5-year-old. I'm saying care about your own happiness, guys. Be responsible for it like the adult that you are. Let the 5-year-old women out there be responsible because they insist on their 5-year-old happiness all the time. They do. We can't even do that as 5-year-old boys. So like I'm saying, like shoot past that. Be stubbornly responsible and respectfully responsible as a mature adult guy about what you want. It doesn't matter how sorry you feel for her, how she's young and pretty and you're a big man and daddy. Who cares? Work out your own dysfunctions, grow up. If you choose a train wreck, don't be like these women that pick bad boys and try and pass themselves off as, I'm so nice, look at me. I tried to change the bad boy into a nicer person. I'm Mother Teresa. You're not. You like bad boys. You're an idiot. Stop passing yourself off as a virtuous person. You're a 5-year-old who likes chocolate cake. And you're telling me, oh, it's not my fault. I tried to make the chocolate cake into like a vegan meal, or I don't know, an Atkins meal or something. Be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself. Salem says, hey, human, don't you think that as we go through life that some people, partners, are only meant to be a specific phase as the phase ends, so does the relationship too? Philosophically speaking, yeah. But some guys, like the world, it comes crashing down. A couple of years ago, I'd say about maybe 8 or 9 years ago, maybe, that was a really bad relationship that was meant to be a big lesson. That destroyed me. She was extremely incompatible with me. But she had a personality that was very low key. She wasn't a loudmouth, but she was actually diagnosed narcissist. I found out towards the end of the relationship. She admitted it, and her mother told her to go to therapy, and she refused to go. Not surprisingly, narcissists don't like going to therapy because they think they're gods. But she admitted to me towards the end when things were already going bad, and she wanted to discard me. But that really destroyed me because she hollowed me out. And that's when I read up about the stuff. And it was the first time I heard, seriously, I'd heard narcissism in passing, but I never really had an interest in psychological diagnosis and things like that. I respected it to some degree, especially the more scientific approach to things and categorization. But then afterwards, I started to look into it, and every single trait, she was on there. And she was narcissistic to a T, but she was a great lesson to me, as Salem says. And I'm not grateful for the lesson because it was a lot of pain, but it was very instructive, and I accept it because I learned a hell of a lot from her. In fact, in the next couple of years, I started my channel, and the relationship that followed her, it didn't work out again. It lasted a couple of years, but I was very consciously aware of all the failures that were starting to happen, and I was there in real time, and I had discussions with her, and the failure of communication and the lessening of communication over time, and her revealing slowly, well, she was hiding this part from me, and she wanted this, and she thought that I would change, and blah, blah, blah. But I was actually aware of when I was seeing those changes happen. Whereas prior to the lesson of the narcissist, I wasn't that self-aware of it. Any last questions or super chats? And let's end this show. All right, guys. Thanks to all the regulars. If any of you guys want to jump on my Gilded server, if you've got a microphone, you want to chat with each other, that's always open. I need to get out of this heat and put down these blinds because it's pretty hot outside and I need the light to come through. But thank you very much for showing up. Hit the like button, the subscribe. It helps the channel out. I really appreciate it. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.